Hello! Today I have a book review for An Appetite for Miracles by Laekan and Kemp. So this was my very first book for March because I started it on March 1st and then I finished it on March 4th. It's 440 pages, and as you can see, I tabbed quite a few things throughout this book. So I rated this a 5 out of 5, and not only is it my favorite book for March, but I honestly think it's going to be one of my favorite reads of 2026. So in this book, we follow two characters, one named Danna and another one named Raul. Danna's grandfather has dementia, and basically we read about her journey in trying to get her grandfather to remember things through different kinds of food. So I mentioned in my March TBR video that the only thing I really knew about this book was it talks about different types of Mexican food, but that is not completely right, and the food plays a much larger role than what I thought, and there's a lot of different foods in here as well, not just Mexican food. So the thing with Danna and her grandfather, he has dementia, and she begins trying to get him to remember things by giving him just different recipes that he loves, recipes that she would always make, different foods from like different places that he would go to. So she is really just trying to hold on to her grandfather for as long as he can. And honestly, it was a little bit sad to see her cling to this idea that she can make him remember. Now, granted, she is successful a few times in giving him different foods, and the food will just like spark a memory in him, and then he will like talk to her like nothing has happened, and he'll talk about the food that's in front of him, his first memory of eating it, how he likes how she made it, and just like different things like that. But then it would be really sad when she would give him food and then he wouldn't remember at all, or he wouldn't like hang on to the memory for as long as he would the previous time that he would remember. So it was just really sad to see her just trying so hard to get him to remember and just going to like great lengths in trying to get him to remember things. She took him to a restaurant because he wrote like food reviews in different magazines and stuff when he was younger. She would take him to these restaurants that he wrote about in his younger years in hopes of trying to get him to remember, but it wouldn't really go the way that she would expect. So she would get really sad, and then the grandpa would have like a really bad reaction because he wouldn't remember where he was or who he was with or what he was eating. So it was just a really emotional journey to see her go through. And honestly, I teared up quite a bit reading that because it was just written so well and the emotions were just so visceral. I don't know what it's like to have a relative with dementia, but the way the author wrote it, I felt like I was right there with Danna and trying to get him to remember things. And what also would make me really sad reading this journey with her and her grandpa is his wife, her grandma, has already passed. They don't say from what. I think maybe it was just old age. I can't really remember. And I don't think it was insinuated that her grandmother also had dementia. But when her grandpa would kind of remember who he was and who he was with, he would call out for his wife. But in that moment, no one had the heart to tell him that she wasn't with them anymore, that she passed. So he would just call out for her and call out for her until we see his memory kind of fade. And then he would go back to not really remembering who he is, where he is, or anything like that. So it was just parts like that that would make me really sad because, I don't know, I just really sympathized with her and just trying to grasp onto him a little bit longer each time when he would remember something. So it was just really sad. And the different foods in here were really interesting. Like aside from like tacos and empanadas, there was like, I don't know how to pronounce it really well. It's called like, my pronunciation is not going to be very good, but it's called chorreadas de piloncillo. And I guess they're like the engagement cookies. So it was food like that. And then as I mentioned, the grandpa would go to different places and try restaurants. So there would be food from different countries. Like there were chips from Singapore. I think they were called like, it was K-A-K-A, caca. So like they would laugh at it because caca means like poop in Spanish, but in Singapore, it's a type of chips. So that was like really good food that was mentioned. It talked about like ice cream and different like sweets and pastries that Danna would bake. So the food played a much more larger role than what I thought. It wasn't just like good food and baking and cooking throughout the book. The food was used as a tool to help the grandpa remember, and it wasn't successful every time that Danna would try to give him food to remember. So that part of Danna's story was really sad to me. I teared up so many times and I absolutely loved it. I would have to like pause every so often when it was about her and her grandpa because I would just get so sad. But honestly, those emotions were one of the reasons of why I really loved this book. And another thing with Dana that also had like a really visceral reaction with me is she has a very strained relationship with her mother. Her mom was like the meanest person ever. Her mom would make comments about her body, her food intake, what she should wear, and things like that. I would just get so mad at her mom because her mom would make these comments at a full dinner table, like with her husband, Dana, Victoria, who is Dana's cousin, the grandpa, and like the dad would sort of stand up for Dana, and there were definitely like closed door arguments about this, but the dad would like meekly be like, oh honey, don't say that, or he would give Dana the extra serving that she was getting, or he would just be like, oh, like kind of brushing off the comments. But the mom would say these comments and that would piss me off. The dad was kind of like, honestly, he was a little meek for me, so I was like, why is no one telling this woman that it is not right to tell your daughter this? And the reason why it had a visceral reaction with me is, one, like I have a sort of similar situation to this, not super similar, like adjacent. So like I think that just really bothered me that the mom would say these comments to her daughter and like nobody would tell her anything. But second, and to be honest, I have come to this realization, I am extremely judgmental of parents. I'm not a parent myself, but I will honestly judge parents. And I kind of don't care because there are a lot of things that parents do that I think is not right. And specifically with An Appetite for Miracles, I think the mom was just not in the right at all. And I wish that someone just like told her straight to her face, or maybe even just like gave her a good slap throughout this book, because she was just so mean to Dana. Now keep in mind, Danna and Raul, they're both teenagers. So this mom is telling her teenager, you shouldn't wear this. Granted, that I think is fine in like some situations, but Dana would just be wearing clothes that fit her body and the mom would have an issue with it. Dana would want a second serving of something and the mom would have an issue of it. So the mom would just piss me off, and I would think like, she is a terrible mother. She's not a good parent. She shouldn't be a parent if this is how she's going to talk to her kid. So I'm really harsh with parents. I'm really harsh about the way parents be a parent and be a person. We learn why the mom would say these things to Dana because it relates to something that the mom went through. And I think it's good to acknowledge the reason that the mom does this, but it's still not an excuse. So I kind of don't care what the mom went through, because she should have fixed that shit way before she had her daughter, way before she should have been like opening her mouth and telling Dana all these comments. And eventually the mom does apologize to Dana, and Dana accepts her apology. And the mom ends up doing something that I think is really noble of her, that I think is honestly really good for her, because the mom all throughout the book is really angry. So I think this thing that the mom ends up doing is going to be really good for her, for the sake of herself, for the sake of her family. So that's why Dana's relationship with her mom just had such a visceral reaction for me. The dad also needed to do better, because I even asked my husband this. I was like, what if we had a daughter and I told her all of these comments, like in front of you, in front of my dad, in front of like her cousin? And even my husband was like, I would shut that shit down. I would give our daughter the food that she wants, and then you and I would have a closed door like discussion about this, because that is not going to fly, and you are not going to talk to my daughter that way. And that confirmed that for me, because I was like, okay, yes, you would do that to me. Why is the dad in this book not doing that to his wife? Before I get even more worked up, Dana and her mom had a very strenuous relationship, but they end up working on it, and it does seem like it gets a little bit better. Dana is forgiving of her mom, and she honestly feels better that she and her mom have reached like the strides to make their relationship better. So moving on to Raul's story, it's also really sad and interesting because his mom is currently in prison, but we learned that she was wrongfully incarcerated. And because she's in prison, he is being raised by his uncle, which is like one of the younger brothers of his mom. And we kind of just see what it's like for a child to have their parent in prison, wrongfully incarcerated, and being raised by someone else. So whenever Raul and his mom like talk on the phone, the conversation doesn't seem to really be very deep. Granted, they only have like, I think he said 5 minutes to talk on the phone. I can't remember. All I remember is it's not a lot of time, but in that minimal time that they have, the only thing that she asks him about is school and how he's doing, and that's kind of it. So when she eventually gets released, thankfully, because I don't think her sentence was that long. I want to say maybe it was 2 years or so. I can't remember, but it wasn't super long, but it was still long enough for that to have such a huge effect on their family. So when the mom comes back, their relationship is also really like strained, because still the mom really only seems to care about his school and his homework and his grades. Their conversations are pretty superficial, and then as we move throughout the book and we see how they're acclimating to her being home, it becomes more strained, and she begins to kind of like rule with an iron fist, because when Raul and Danna start to like see each other a little bit more, his mom is like, you're not allowed to go out, you're not allowed to have a girlfriend, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. It's homework, school, church, and that's it. So when Raul starts to like do things that are outside of his mom's expectations, which granted, the things that he's doing, it's not like they're bad. He's just going out with people, he's hanging out with his friends, but she doesn't like that, so she punishes him. There was one punishment that she enacted with him that I thought was so sad and so messed up. And thankfully, the uncle was able to step in a couple of times throughout these interactions with him and his mom. And the uncle would kind of like calm the mom down, bring her down to earth a little bit more, and then he would console Raul. So that was really nice. But again, it was really hard, because you see how hard it was for Raul when his mom was in prison. And now we're seeing how hard it is for him now that his mom is home. It almost is like there's still some sort of wall that's separating them. We do learn why she has such an iron fist on why she thinks he should only concentrate on like school, homework, and church. And honestly, her reason, I get it. Obviously not like personally, but I understand her thinking and why she's doing this a certain way, and like what it, I'm trying not to say it, and what happened in her past, and why she's using that as like the force that she has on her son. Like, I get it. It makes sense. I think maybe she went a little bit too far at times. I feel like she wasn't really sympathetic with Raul. She didn't really think about him and his feelings. She was just so worried about him not ending up like her. But she didn't really take the time to get to know him a little bit more, and they didn't have like a deep conversation about things. But we do learn why she is like that, and we do see them like work towards a much better relationship, and she does calm down a little bit, so like that's good. But it was just really sad to see, because again, it was hard when she was in prison, and it's somehow still hard now that she's home. And it was sad because when she was in prison, obviously this was having such a huge effect on him, and it seems like no one fully understood him, like more in line at school, because he wasn't doing super well in his classes. His grades were okay, because one of the chapters in here is like his report card, and his grades I thought were like fine. They were definitely like salvageable. It wasn't like he had F's all throughout the board. Like, he was fine. He just needed a little bit more tutoring and attention. But most of his teachers would just assume that he's being lazy and he didn't care. And I think there were times where he was falling asleep in class because he had trouble sleeping. And a lot of the teachers, again, they just assumed he didn't care or anything, so he was always getting detention. But one thing that I really liked was that he had a teacher that honestly understood completely what he was going through. So that teacher was much more lenient with him. He gave him a little bit more support. So it was nice to see Raul have this extra source of comfort and this other adult in his life that was giving him these resources for help. Like, he needed a much bigger support system, so I'm glad it didn't just stay within his home life. I'm glad he had like his teacher at school, one of his friends that where they played in the band together at church, and then Danna came in. So it was good that he had all of these different support systems, because it was just really sad, because it just seemed like everyone assumed he was being lazy when he wasn't. And him and his uncle had a lot of sweet moments. The uncle would just comfort him in ways that I wasn't expecting, because Raul isn't religious, but his uncle is like a deacon, I think. So we see how religion also kind of ties in with Raul and giving him comfort. Another source of his like healing or comfort was playing music. He really loves playing guitar, and that's actually how he meets Danna. Him and his uncle go around to different households of, I'm pretty sure, patients with dementia, and Raul does music therapy for them. He plays the guitar, he plays their favorite music, and then his uncle will, I think the uncle will read from the Bible, or I don't really know, I'm not religious, I don't know what to call it, will read like Psalms or something. Not like give a whole religious oriented speech. I forget the word for that, but they were involved in music therapy and religion was tied into this as well. The guitar, you could see how much it meant to Raul, and he would just strum away kind of mindlessly, getting lost in the music, using that as an outlet for all of the pain that he was going through. So it was really nice to see that he also had something for himself that could bring him comfort. So when it comes to Danna and Raul, because they eventually, again, they meet up because Raul goes to Danna's house and they do music therapy for his grandpa. They start texting each other on like Instagram, and then I think they move to like just regular text messaging on their phone, and they start going out together, getting to know each other. And honestly, I just thought they were really adorable together. To me, when I read this, they were just two kids who had really stressful home lives, and they found solace in each other, and they found a support system in each other. And I thought that was just really sweet. And even when Danna was going around to all these different restaurants to find the food that her grandfather raved about in those magazines, when it wouldn't work out or when it did work out, Raul was always there for her to either comfort her when it didn't work out and to like soothe her and be like, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to go to this restaurant that's all the way over here? And then when it would work, he would be happy for her and he would like share in her success and getting her grandpa to remember. So it was really sweet that he was there for her. And then with Danna, she would also comfort Raul about his mom because she didn't know that she was in prison, I believe. And she just seemed to understand the hurt that he was having and the problems that he was having at school. So they really just helped each other. So to me, it was really sad when Raul's mom would tell him, no, you can't go out with her. No, you can't do this. Because I'm thinking like, come on, they're just two kids. They're going through something stressful and they're helping each other. Like they're not doing anything bad. They're not doing anything wrong. It's a wonderful feeling to find someone that totally understands you and brings you comfort during extremely stressful life situations. So that's really what I see when I read about Raul and Danna. They just brought each other a lot of love and comfort and support with their individual stresses. And some smaller things that I loved about this book was I really loved seeing Raul and his storyline of his mom being wrongfully incarcerated, because we learn how she was wrongfully incarcerated, and we learned about how that person that like basically pointed the finger at her, how they had a huge part to play in it, but they didn't get in trouble. And we see how they sort of interacted with Raul. So we just see just how much of a great effect it was on him, because it wasn't just like, oh, my mom's in prison, now she's home. It was initially like, oh, my mom has this person in their life. They don't like me. They treat me this way. They talk to me this way, but I don't say anything to my mom. Okay, now they got my mom in trouble. Now we're going through like this legal process to try and get her to not go to prison. And it costs this much money. We need this many lawyers. We have this many like court hearing dates or something. So it was just so much more intricate than what I thought, because again, obviously his mom just wasn't born in prison. Like there was a whole backstory to it. And I loved seeing that backstory and how that affected Raul in the long term. And we see how it also affects the mom, because when she's back home, we see her in her vulnerable moments. We see her cry. We see her have nightmares. And when she's like sobbing super hard in her room or the shower, we see how Raul wants to comfort her, but he knows that like whatever she went through in prison, like there's nothing he can do to fix it. So we see the mom just trying to let out all of these emotions that she's also having, and just also trying to acclimate to her home life, because Raul tells her like the most scathing line I have ever heard, and I'm pretty sure I tabbed it too. We also see how the mom was hurting, and that also felt really sad, because it's not just, oh, Raul's mom is in prison. This woman got wrongfully incarcerated. She's away from her son. She's away from her family, from her brother that's raising her son. And then she has to get used to being back in the real world again, because she's setting like a routine for herself. She is at home. She goes to church. She does like a few other things. But you see how she's also struggling to like acclimate to her life again. So that's what I really liked about Raul's story. There was just so many different aspects that go into it, other than his mom is in prison, but now she's back home, and that's it. Oh, and another thing that I will say about this is that Danna and her cousin Victoria, I absolutely loved seeing them interact with each other. I really like when stories have like family members, like cousins or nephews, aunts and uncles and all that, who are super close. Because we see Danna and Victoria, I'm pretty sure they go to the same school, but I can't remember if one is older than the other or not. But sometimes they would like leave school early to go out to eat together. They would go buy snacks and go to a park and eat it together. They would talk on the phone all the time. And I think Danna even says like being cousins is not enough, like we should be sisters. So it was really sweet to see Danna and her cousin Victoria just have this super close bond with each other. And that's what I really like about this book, was just the huge emphasis on family. So the thing about the book being told in verse, as you can see in these pages here, I don't read books in verse all that often. This is, I'm pretty sure the second book that I've read in verse. But what I really liked about reading in this format is I feel like a lot of the things that were said up in this book, I feel like they were much more intimate. And I feel like they were, when I would read the line, it would be so powerful that's why I had to tab it. And I think that's why I tab so many things. Not to say that if it wasn't told in verse, it wouldn't have the same effect. I think it would. But I think the book being told in verse was a much better way to tell the story. I hope I'm not saying that like wrong or mean. I just think the format of the book being in verse was definitely such a powerful way to tell this story. And I don't know how to like go around that, because I'm trying to fix what I say, because I hope that's not coming out wrong. I think if the story was told in like a regular fiction format, it would still be amazing. But again, I feel like when I would read a lot of the lines in here, I would feel such visceral reactions, as I mentioned, because that's how I felt with Danna and her mom, Danna and her grandfather, Raul and his mom, in so many different relationships. I think the verse format just felt so powerful. And I think because I don't read novels in verse so often, that's why it just feels so powerful to me. Essentially, this book is just a very powerful book about forgiving people, healing through music, through food, through different connections, through family. It's an intergenerational family story. So just with all of those reasons that I mentioned about Danna's storyline, Raul's storyline, the family bonds, the food, everything about it, that is why I rated this a 5 out of 5. And it's definitely one of my favorite books of 2026. Now, I honestly don't know what I could say about this book, because I feel like I will just start going in circles, and I probably will start dissecting all like the different things that I tapped. But I just wanted to at least say all of that and share why I think this book is absolutely amazing. And I definitely am going to pick up more books by this author. I know there are a couple more, like this one is called Somewhere Between Bitter and Sweet, and this one is called Heartbreak Symphony. I don't know if these are also in verse, but if they are, like, I am definitely going to pick these up. And if they're not, I'm still going to pick them up. I just think because this is my very first impression of this author, I'm just like super excited to read more novels in verse and to just read this author in general. So I feel myself wanting to go around in circles and just like rambling and not making sense and trying to connect so many different dots that are flying around my head. So I think I'm going to stop it there. But thank you so much for listening to my book review. I would love to know what your favorite book has been so far, whether January, February, or this month of March. And I would like to know if you have read this book and if you love it as much as I do. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope that I see you next time.